The history of the Vietnamese nation is a tragic yet heroic epic, written with the blood and tears of countless generations of heroes who fell to protect every inch of land, every cultural root, and every sacred value of the Vietnamese people. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, when the dark shadow of colonialism loomed over the South and the country was divided and many royal officials surrendered, sparks of resilience still flared across the S-shaped land, born from patriotism and the unyielding hearts of those who refused to bow to the enemy. Four names, Truong Dinh, Phan Dinh Phung, Nguyen Thien Thuat, and Tham, became brilliant marks in the national epic of resistance against the French. They were not seekers of fame, nor dreamers of power. They were peasants, scholars, and patriotic officials who rose above social divisions to stand with the people, becoming the soul and symbols of resistance movements across the three regions, North, Central, and South. Truong Dinh, a son of Gau Kong, emerged as a leading figure in the first resistance against the French in southern Vietnam. He dared to defy the king's orders, dared to take up arms for the people, even knowing he would be branded a traitor. But in the hearts of the people, Truong Dinh remains Binh Tay Dai Nguyen Sai, Grand Marshal pacifying the West, one who placed the nation's and people's interests above a weak and submissive monarchy. Phan Dinh Phung, an intellectual from central Vietnam, stepped away from his official position after witnessing the exile of Emperor Ham Nhi and the fall of the nation into enemy hands. Through the Con Vuong movement, he persevered for 10 years in the mountains of Hung Kay, fighting relentlessly. He was not only a brilliant military leader, but also the embodiment of a righteous gentleman and a loyal court official who loved his country until his last breath. Nguyen Thien Thuat, a northern mandarin, resigned from his post and retreated to the marshlands of Bai Sai to raise the flag of revolt. With strategic wisdom and unwavering loyalty, he turned the swampy region into a guerrilla battlefield that tormented the French for many years. When forced to take refuge in China, he still preserved his integrity, rejecting all offers of surrender to remain loyal to the motherland. Tham, known by the people as the Gray Tiger of Yen Thay, led an uprising that lasted nearly 30 years, the most enduring and resilient struggle in the early period of resistance against the French. A farmer by birth, without scholarly or official background, he rallied patriots and built an impregnable base, using guerrilla tactics that repeatedly frustrated French forces. His life is a vivid testament to the boundless power of patriotism among the common people. Four individuals, four destinies, four paths, yet one shared ideal, never surrendering, never yielding, determined to protect the sacred land of Vietnam. At a time when the feudal monarchy was declining, the role of people's leaders like them became the spiritual pillars of the nation, carrying on the legacy of fighting invaders, leaving profound historical lessons in courage, wisdom, and unwavering loyalty. Today, in a nation that has achieved independence, looking back on the painful yet radiant resistance against the French, the people of Vietnam still cherish the images of heroes like Truong Dinh, Phan Dinh Phung, Nguyen Thien Thuat, and Tham as sacred flames, illuminating the path of national sovereignty for generations to come. Truong Dinh, the Binh Tay Dai Nguyen Sai, who defied the emperor's order. Background and entry into the court. Truong Dinh was born in 1820 in Tu Cuong Village, Duong Diem District, Gau Kong Prefecture, now Tiên Giang Province, into a poor peasant family with a tradition of patriotism and integrity. From a young age, he stood out for his upright character, great ambitions, and deep love for his homeland. Unlike many scholars of his time who followed the path of civil service examinations, Truong Dinh chose a different path. He joined the military and became a martial official under the Nguyen dynasty. During his time as an official in southern Vietnam, he was tasked with resettling people and reclaiming new lands in areas such as Gau Kong, Tân Hoa, and Tân An. He organized communities, dug canals, cleared land, and helped improve people's lives, turning these lands into prosperous regions. Thanks to these achievements, he earned the love and respect of the people, who affectionately called him the people's official. French invasion, imperial surrender, Truong Dinh rises up. In 1858, the French launched an invasion of Da Nang, marking the beginning of their war to colonize Vietnam. By 1859, they had seized Gia Dinh Citadel and rapidly expanded their control over southern Vietnam. In this situation, the Nguyen court was in turmoil, fighting both external enemies and internal unrest, lacking preparedness and decisiveness in defense strategies. The situation worsened in 1862 when the Hue court signed the Treaty of Nam Tuot, officially ceding 3 eastern provinces of southern Vietnam to the French and ordering local officials and militias to disband. Truong Dinh refused to comply with the imperial order. He became famous for his historic statement, "I am a loyal servant of His Majesty, but I am also a citizen of the people. The people's resentment has not subsided. How can I hastily lay down my sword?" With that spirit, he rejected the order to return to the court and chose to stay with the people of Gokong to continue resisting the French. This was a courageous act, as it meant being seen as a traitor by the court, but in the hearts of the people, he became the torchbearer of the first anti-French movement in the South. Organizing militias and fighting bravely. After refusing to disband, Truong Dinh and his comrades built a large militia force of thousands, mainly composed of peasants, former soldiers, and patriots. He established bases in Gokong, Tân Hoa, Chợ Gao, and in the swampy, river-laced regions, terrain well suited for guerrilla warfare. His militia was well organized, divided into units using hit-and-run tactics, ambushes, sabotage of supply lines, and attacks on small French outposts, causing the enemy frequent confusion and forcing them to dispatch reinforcements and increase repression. His resistance achieved notable victories, especially the attack on the Qui Hoa Fort, one of the French's key strongholds. Despite being poorly equipped, the militia's spirit was unyielding. Their hatred of the invaders and trust in their leader gave them immense strength. More than a warrior, Truong Dinh was the soul of the Southern resistance movement. He encouraged his troops, ensured supplies, trained them in combat, and ignited patriotism among the people. Many villagers voluntarily contributed rice, money, and supplies to support him in defending the land for the people. Tragic end and heroic death. However, due to the vastly unequal balance of power and without court support, in fact, with a warrant issued for his arrest, Truong Dinh's militia began to falter. The French intensified their suppression, sending experienced commanders to the south to eliminate his forces completely. In 1864, during a major battle, Truong Dinh was seriously wounded. Surrounded by French troops with no escape, he chose death over capture to preserve his integrity. His death shocked the entire southern region and became a symbol of noble sacrifice in the hearts of the Vietnamese people. Spiritual legacy and heroic symbol. Though his uprising lasted only a few years, Truong Dinh is remembered as the pioneer of Vietnamese resistance against the French, driven by strong national spirit, independent of the imperial court, and placing the people's will above that of the monarchy. The people honored him as Bin Tay Dai Nguyen Soai, Grand Marshal pacifying the West, a title not granted by any decree but filled with reverence. He embodied the image of a grassroots hero, living for the people, dying for the nation, courageously confronting both foreign enemies and a weak court. Truong Dinh's resistance sparked a new era in Vietnamese history, an era in which the people rose to save the country without relying entirely on the feudal monarchy. From the flame he lit in Gokong, other fires were kindled. Phan Dinh Phung in central Vietnam, Nguyen Thien Thuat in the north, and Hoang Hoa Tham in Nguyen Thai, all igniting a fierce wave of resistance that lasted over half a century. Phan Dinh Phung, the loyal general of the Con Vuong movement. Youth, education, and official career. Phan Dinh Phung was born in 1847 in Dong Thai Village, La Son District, Ha Tinh Province, a land rich in scholarly and patriotic traditions. From an early age, he stood out for his intelligence, exemplary morals, and noble character. Born into a Confucian family, he was early instilled with a spirit of righteousness, honor, and devotion to the people and the nation. In 1877, he passed the imperial examination as the top doctoral laureate, Dinh Nguyen Thien Si, becoming one of the most prominent scholars under the Nguyen dynasty at the time. Not only was he distinguished in literature, but he was also known for his upright character and was appointed as a royal censor, Ngu Su, a position responsible for advising the king and supervising court officials. He was respected by Emperor Tu Duc and admired by his peers. However, His official life did not remain peaceful for long. After Emperor Tuduk passed away in 1883, the court fell into internal strife. Factions competed for power, and the French took advantage of the situation to intensify their invasion of northern Vietnam. When the court signed the 1883 and 1884 treaties of Giap Thuat and Nguyen Thuat, officially surrendering to the French, Phan Dinh Phung strongly opposed and was dismissed and sent back to his hometown. Yet this turning point became the beginning of his greatest journey, becoming the leader of the resistance in central Vietnam and the head of the Con Vuong movement in Nghệ An, Hà Tĩnh, and Quang Binh. The Con Vuong movement and his commitment to the cause. After the French attacked the imperial capital Hue, Emperor Ham Nghi and General Ton That Thuit fled the court and issued the Con Vuong Proclamation in 1885, calling on the people to help the king save the country. This call spread like wildfire, igniting the patriotic spirit of thousands, from scholars and officials to ordinary citizens. Phan Dinh Phung responded to the call, quickly gathering patriots and being acclaimed as the supreme leader of the resistance in central Vietnam. Alongside Cao Thang, a brave and talented general, he built a strong resistance army, operating mainly in the mountainous forests of Hung Khe, Hà Tĩnh, later expanding into Nghệ An, Quang Binh, and Thanh Hoa. Notably, Phan Dinh Phung and Cao Thang organized the production of rifles modeled after French weapons, trained soldiers, built supply depots, and established logistics. His resistance was not impulsive, but was systematically and strategically organized for the long term. 10 years of legendary warfare and the spirit of no surrender. From 1885 to 1895, the Hung Khe militia under Phan Dinh Phung's command fought hundreds of battles, causing great disruption to the French. Using flexible guerrilla tactics and exploiting the rugged terrain of north-central Vietnam, the militia conducted rapid attacks, ambushes on posts, supply line disruptions, and road sabotage. The French repeatedly had to send reinforcements and elite officers to hunt him down. They employed numerous tactics, military, economic, and psychological, to subdue him, destroying villages, burning fields, capturing his relatives, and even exhuming and burning his parents' graves, sending the ashes with demands for his surrender. Yet through all this vile pressure, Phan Dinh Phung remained steadfast and refused to yield. To these despicable actions, he responded briefly but profoundly. "This body I entrust to heaven and earth. While the nation's cause remains unfinished, I cannot surrender to the enemy. Better to die for the country than live in disgrace." The 10-year resistance saw him wounded multiple times, losing close comrades, especially Cao Thang, his trusted right-hand man, who died in battle. Still, he did not falter. Though increasingly exhausted by illness and hardship, Phan Dinh Phung stayed in the fight until his final breath. Heroic death and eternal spiritual legacy. In January 1896, after years of battling tuberculosis and lingering wounds, Phan Dinh Phung took his last breath in the mountains of Hung Khe, the place he had called the battlefield of life and death. Upon his death, the French dared not publicly display his body for fear the people would venerate him as a saint and further incite patriotism. Phan Dinh Phung died in poverty, leaving behind no riches or glory, but he left behind a towering spiritual legacy. He embodied the scholar warrior who gave up luxury and power to live in exile in the deep forest for a noble cause. More than that, he was a model leader, possessing the intellect and virtue of a Confucian scholar, the bravery and military acumen of a brilliant general, and a deep bond with the people as a true son of the nation. Historical significance. Phan Dinh Phung is honored by later generations as the greatest anti-French general of the Con Vuong movement, the embodiment of the Vietnamese scholar's integrity in the 19th century, the brightest banner of righteousness after the court surrendered to the enemy. The Hung Khe movement he led was not only one of the largest and longest-lasting armed uprisings, but also a symbol of unity between intellectuals and the masses, between justice and the will of the people. It was he, not the court, who upheld the honor and prestige of Vietnam during its darkest period. Nguyen Thien Thuat, the patriot banner of Bai Sai. Hometown, education, and early official career. Nguyen Thien Thuat was born in 1844 in Xuân Duc village, Duong Hao district, Thuong Hong prefecture. now Sunduk Commune, Mihao District, Hưng Province, into a renowned Confucian family with a strong tradition of patriotism and scholarship. From a young age, he was known for his intelligence, diligence, upright character, and constant concern for national affairs and the people's well-being. In 1870, he passed the imperial exam with the rank of Phobang, equivalent to second-rank doctorate, and was appointed Education Commissioner of Haidung Province, then Judicial Commissioner of Hưng Yên Province. During his tenure, he was known as an honest and upright official who cared for the people and fought against corruption, earning the respect of both scholars and the public. However, as the Nguyen dynasty became increasingly submissive, signing treaties of surrender to the French, Nguyen Thien Thuat felt he could no longer remain loyal to a court that had lost the people's trust and the cause of righteousness. As the French tightened their control over northern Vietnam, he resigned from office and returned home, preparing for a new journey, a journey of armed resistance for the nation, launching the Bai Sai uprising and building the resistance force. In 1885, responding to Emperor Ham Nghi's Con Vuong proclamation, Nguyen Thien Thuat officially took up arms alongside his younger brother Nguyen Thien Kay and many northern patriots, establishing a base in the Bai Sai region, a vast area covering parts of Hưng Yên, Haidung, Bắc Ninh, and Thái Bình. Known for its dense waterways, thick reeds, and rugged terrain, it was ideal for guerrilla warfare. The initial resistance force numbered only a few hundred, but thanks to Nguyen Thien Thuat's leadership, strategic skills, and reputation, the force grew rapidly, attracting thousands of peasants, former soldiers, and patriotic scholars. He divided his troops into small, mobile units operating along riversides, ambushing enemy outposts, and disrupting French supply lines. He also established strict military regulations emphasizing discipline, patriotism, and a code of conduct that strictly prohibited harming civilians or seizing their property. Unlike many spontaneous uprisings, Nguyen Thien Thuat built a resistance movement that was organized, politically conscious, and aimed at long-term goals rather than short-lived revolts. As a result, his forces sustained operations for 5 years, inflicting significant damage on French forces in the north. Notable battles and the strategy of striking like thunder, vanishing like shadows. Exploiting the dense reeds and interlacing waterways, the Bai Sai forces under Nguyen Thien Thuat conducted flexible guerrilla warfare, striking quickly and retreating safely to secure bases. In major battles at Tân Hưng, Vân Giang, Pho Noi, and Tiêu Quan, the insurgents killed hundreds of French troops and collaborators, captured many weapons, and shocked the colonial administration across the northern delta. The French referred to Nguyen Thien Thuat as the Dragon of Bai Sai, and the Bai Sai movement as a thorn in the throat of the colonial regime in Tonkin. The resistance also targeted economic and administrative structures, destroying tax stations, markets, and grain depots established by the French to exploit the people, thereby paralyzing the French administrative system in rural areas. Nguyen Thien Thuat wrote many proclamations urging the people to rise up, denouncing the injustice of French colonialism and the weakness of the Nguyen court, awakening national spirit. Hardships, encirclement, and life in exile. From 1889 onward, under increasing French pressure, with superior numbers, modern equipment, and relentless sweeps, the Bai Sai movement weakened. Many bases were destroyed, and the resistance suffered heavy losses. Commanders like Nguyen Thien Kay and Nguyen Thien Dung were killed or captured. Faced with this situation, Nguyen Thien Thuat retreated to China, continuing his work among the Vietnamese expatriate community in Guangxi and Guangdong. There, he raised funds, connected with other patriotic organizations, and kept the flame of resistance alive among Vietnamese exiles. Though living in exile for over 30 years, Nguyen Thien Thuat never surrendered to the enemy and never returned home to accept titles or rewards. He remained loyal to the cause, living modestly and quietly, inspiring the next generation to continue the struggle. Legacy and historical significance. Nguyen Thien Thuat died in 1926 in China, while the nation was still under colonial rule. Nevertheless, his image lives on in the hearts of the Vietnamese people as a righteous, resilient, wise, and exemplary patriot. Though the Baisei uprising failed militarily, it awakened the northern people's spirit of self-determination and inspired later uprisings, particularly the Yen Thé resistance of Hoang Hoa Tham, who regarded Nguyen Thien Thuat as a spiritual comrade. Unlike leaders who faded after brief prominence, Nguyen Thien Thuat symbolized the Confucian intellectual who stepped out of the imperial mold to join the people in taking up arms. His independent thinking, flexible organization, and enduring fighting spirit laid the ideological foundation for Vietnam's early 20th century national liberation movements. Today, his name graces schools, streets, and memorials. In the hearts of the Hung Yen people, he is the sacred torch of the Reed Lands, a source of pride for a land of extraordinary talent. Hoang Hoa Tham, Gray Tiger of Yen Thé, and the Great Peasant Resistance. Origins, youth, and path to resistance. Hoang Hoa Tham, born Truong Dinh in 1858 in the Yen Thé region of Bắc Giang, came from a poor peasant family during a time of national turmoil under French colonial invasion and widespread oppression of the people. From a young age, Hoang Hoa Tham was known for his chivalry, courage, and resolute character. At just 20 years old, he joined anti-French insurgent forces in northern Vietnam and served under various leaders, notably Day Num, whom he deeply respected as a brother and senior comrade. After Day Num was assassinated in 1887, Hoang Hoa Tham took up the mantle of leadership, officially becoming the commander of the Yen Thé insurgent army. From then on, his name was forever linked with the mountainous northern Midlands, where he built vast resistance bases and became a nightmare for the French for more than 25 years. Yen Thé region and the birth of a small anti-French kingdom. Yen Thé, a rugged, mountainous area in Bắc Giang, was chosen by Hoang Hoa Tham as the heart of his resistance. Its complex terrain, with mountains, deep streams, dense forests, and difficult paths, was ideal for guerrilla warfare. Utilizing this geography, he and his army established many battle bases such as Ho Chui, Ho Mit, Dong Don, and Hang Doi. These bases were not just hideouts, but organized like a small autonomous kingdom within Tonkin, with a solid defense system, civilian life, military presence, production, food storage, and even weapons forges. Under Hoang Hoa Tham's command, the army was divided into units, rigorously trained and highly effective, ready to ambush any colonial post in the region. Unlike many short-lived revolts, the Yen Thé uprising endured continuously from 1884 to 1913, making it the longest peasant resistance in modern Vietnamese history. Guerrilla warfare and glorious victories. The Yen Thé insurgent army led by Hoang Hoa Tham used flexible and clever guerrilla tactics. They struck small garrisons, ambushed military convoys, cut supply routes, and destroyed enemy units. When surrounded, they would retreat deep into the forest, split into smaller units to avoid annihilation, and regroup for sudden counterattacks, causing great losses to the enemy. In the late 19th century, the French government launched multiple large-scale offensives, mobilizing thousands of troops and even sending generals from France to directly command, but they still failed to destroy the Yen Thé resistance. Some notable victories include attacking Phon Xuong garrison, ambushing French troops in Tan An, blocking a supply convoy at Lang Giang Bridge. Several times, the French were forced to negotiate truces with Hoang Hoa Tham to stabilize the situation and avoid further expenses, demonstrating the formidable pressure he exerted. Truces and strategic stalemates with the colonial government. There were periods when the French accepted Hoang Hoa Tham's localized control over Yen Thé, provided he did not expand into neighboring provinces. However, these were merely tactical pauses, during which he continued to secretly build his forces, forge weapons, store supplies, and train his army. Although termed truces, the conflict persisted in a tense and drawn-out stalemate. The French could not tolerate an out-of-control area, while Hoang Hoa Tham never accepted being governed under colonial rule. He repeatedly refused the French's bribes, despite offers of titles, land, and wealth. He firmly upheld his principle. As long as the country is lost and invaders steal our land, I will keep fighting. Final years and a suspicious death. From 1909 onward, the French shifted tactics, concentrating their forces to besiege and destroy the resistance bases. They cut off supplies, attacked logistics, bribed insiders, used spies, and spread misinformation to divide the insurgents. In 1913, after a long and exhausting struggle, Truong Tham was assassinated in a murky plot, believed to be due to internal betrayal or an act by French agents. His death led to the collapse of the Nguyen Thien movement, ending a glorious resistance that had lasted nearly 30 years. Though he fell, Truong Tham lived as a towering monument of anti-colonial spirit, a sacred symbol of the people's strength rising from the most humble of backgrounds. Spiritual legacy and historical significance, Truong Tham stands as the quintessential peasant hero, unlettered, without titles, yet possessing exceptional bravery, intellect, willpower, and military organization. He proved that one does not need royal mandates to defend the homeland, nor a court to represent the people's will. Moreover, he embodied the voice of the oppressed Vietnamese peasantry at a time when neither the court nor the intelligentsia had found effective ways to resist. The Nguyen Thien uprising was a monument of the people, where self-determination was forged through blood, sweat, and ultimate sacrifice. His name is honored in Vietnamese history with titles of deep respect. Grey Tiger of Nguyen Thien, unyielding leader of northern peasants, the commoner who shook the French colonialists. Throughout the late 19th and early 20th centuries, as the nation was caught in the harsh grip of colonialism and the weakening of the feudal monarchy, it was from the very soil, from the people themselves, from scholars and intellectuals to barefoot farmers, that the brightest flames of patriotism emerged. 4 individuals, Truong Dinh, Phan Dinh Phung, Nguyen Thien Thuat, and Truong Tham, were not merely outstanding figures, but eternal symbols of self-reliance, resilience, and dedication to the nation. Truong Dinh was the first to dare what no one had before, defying the emperor's orders, because he understood that when the monarchy no longer stood with the people, it was the people themselves who were most deserving of loyalty. He became the Grand Marshal pacifying the West in the hearts of Southern people, not because of titles, but because of his steadfast commitment to the ideals of protecting the land, the people, and national integrity. Phan Dinh Phung, an intellectual from central Vietnam, chose to abandon royal glory to fight alongside the people for 10 years in the forests of Hung Kay. He was the embodiment of righteousness, integrity, and unwavering patriotism, a Confucian scholar who did not die for honor, but lived entirely for justice. Nguyen Thien Thuật, through the Bai Sai movement, proved that even in a land of tangled rivers and wild reed fields, one could build a resilient fortress of resistance. He bore the spirit of the Northern scholar, living and dying for his country, exiled but never surrendering. Truong Tham, the peasant general of Nguyen Thien's mountains and forests, led the longest uprising in modern Vietnamese history. From an ordinary man, he became the Grey Tiger of Nguyen Thien, making the French colonial administration tremble time and again. He was the embodiment of patriotism flowing in the veins of the common people, a living testament that love for the nation requires no degree or title, only a heart that aches when the homeland is trampled. Though they hailed from different regions, backgrounds, and fought with different strategies, they shared one common trait: the courage to live for a noble cause and to die for the nation's survival. They did not wait for favors from the court, nor did they sit idle in times of turmoil. They stepped forward, faced the enemy, stood among the people, and fell with honor, inscribing the pages of history with their own blood and valor. Today, to mention these 4 heroes is to recall a time of powerful national awakening when the Vietnamese refused to submit to any foreign force. They laid the foundation for future revolutionary generations. From the Dong Kinh Nghĩa Thục and the Vietnam Restoration League to the Nghệ Tĩnh Soviet movement and the August Revolution of 1945. From Gò Công, Hung Kay, and Bai Sai to Nguyen Thien, each step, each trail they walked is marked with pride in a historic era. They are the sacred spirit of the mountains and rivers, the eternal flames, the monuments that will forever live in the hearts of the Vietnamese people.